Hello and welcome. I'm Professor Richard, and I'm introducing you to friendly, intuitive cybersecurity learning. We'll begin to introduce my YouTube channel by an introduction to learning cybersecurity. And this will be intuitive. Indeed, my presentations will be intuitive. I'm a storyteller, so let's begin with a story. Now, my stories are true, they're relevant, I like to think they're interesting, and of course they have a moral. Right? They're going to help set the context for cybersecurity for you, whether you're new to it and wondering, gee, is this a field I'm interested in, or I've been in this a long time and I just need to get refreshed. So let's begin. Many years ago, I lived in Pittsburgh. I worked for Westinghouse, as you'll see. And one summer I decided to take two of my oldest two children on a tour of the Western Pennsylvania woodlands, the Allegheny National Forest. Now, the tour guide was an affable young man, bright, articulate, enthusiastic, made the Western Pennsylvania flora interesting, and I was enjoying myself. And then as we came to a bend in the path, a sharp turn to the left, and his voice deepened, became more serious. And as we approached that bend, he said, "Perception is a matter of perspective." And as we came around, he pointed down at this large fallen object, and he said, repeated, "Perception is a matter of perspective." And then as we all came around, he pointed down and said, "What do you see?" And we kind of chatted among each other. It's a fallen tree. And somebody said it's an oak, and somebody else said, no, it's too big, it's a pine. And our tour guide turned, he stopped, he raised his hand. And then he pointed down, repeating, "Perception is a matter of perspective." And he said, "This is the branch." And he turned and he pointed up at this huge tree, and he said, "That's the tree." And we looked up. You really had to bend your head back. We saw way up at the top of this huge tree. You could see where this branch had broken off. And I felt a chill that hot summer day, not because I had been fooled, but because I had been presumptuous. I had looked down at that fallen object and assumed it was a fallen tree and thought no further. And so this was a lesson for me, a lesson that has served me well throughout my career, throughout my life. That is, perception is a matter of perspective. And so why do I begin our journey exploring cybersecurity with a story like this? Because if you're new to cybersecurity, you'll find out, if you're an existing cybersecurity professional, you know our field is broad and deep. In any circumstance you're in, any situation, there's a lot going on, a lot of moving parts. And what we have to do always is maintain perspective. Are we looking at this branch? Or are we looking at a sub-branch, or a twig, or a leaf? Or are we looking at the whole tree? That's critical if we're going to be successful in our field. Now, what may have occurred to you by now is, well, if I'm going to be your guide on this tour, who am I to do that? What are my credentials? Why should you listen to me? So let me share my credentials. I'm a certified information system security professional. And here is my experience in cybersecurity. I began at Westinghouse Electric back in the 1980s. Back then, companies typically didn't have chief information security officers. In fact, they didn't have any security officers. And Westinghouse didn't have a lot of officers in particular. What they had were committees. And so they formed a committee to manage the information security risks, the cybersecurity risks, and they called it a Center of Technical Expertise. And we had the Information System Security of Technical Expertise, and I was the co-chair of that function. I also ran the meetings. So it was kind of, in effect, Westinghouse's CISO. From there, I went to Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory, and in particular, in the Computer Security Technology Center there at Lawrence Livermore, I founded and led an organization, Secure Systems Services. We provided consulting services for Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory. More importantly, for external organizations, government organizations like the National Library of Medicine, the National Institutes of Health, the California Department of Water Resources, the company Qualcomm, and many others. From there, I went to Fidelity Systems Company, where I was Director of Data Security. From there, probably my most senior position, I was the Chief Information Security Officer of Mellon Financial, which is now part of Bank of New York Mellon. My official title was Manager of Corporate Information Security and Disaster Recovery. From there, I went to the Washington, D.C. area and consulted through the company Silo Smashers. I was a Senior Information Security Consultant, where we did government contracts. I consulted for the Transportation Security Administration, the Treasury Department, and the GSA. For the TSA and the GSA, I was in effect a security officer. For Treasury, I was a security consultant, a cybersecurity consultant. From there, I kind of took an entrepreneurial turn, another entrepreneurial turn, if you will. But here in the healthcare, my wife and I founded and managed healthcare practice where we treated children with special needs. It was Creative Health Solutions. We had that for about 10 years. And then at that point in my career and in my life, I settled down and started to teach. And for 3 years, I taught at Coding Dojo, which is now part of Colorado Technical University. Right. So, is this my ego trip? Well, as you can see, I've been an employee, I've been an employer, I've been on both sides of the interview, so I know what it takes to be a successful cybersecurity professional, and I know what companies are looking for in terms of finding the right cybersecurity professional. So I think I can provide a lot, I know I can provide a lot of insight, direction for you folks.